often anymore, I play 1e4. That's because it's an aggressive opening, but experienced players have a way to figure out how to get positions where they don't have to think that much. And I especially like to play positions like I'm going to go through in this game in the Maroczy Bind, as it has overlap with my beloved English opening. And once you get the setup, and here I was fully prepared to go into the main lines of the Sicilian con. And this is kind of a sidebar lesson for why this line is now, in my opinion, very, very dangerous for black. Bishop d3 is the most flexible way to play against the con. You can play c4 immediately and go into the Maroczy Bind. And I personally myself quit playing the Sicilian con because I felt the Maroczy Bind was nearly impossible to play against when you're in must-win situations if white wants to do nothing. And you'll see the way I play in this game that you can check the engine eval just the entire time. White's between plus 0.5 and 1.2 and just bouncing through the entire game. And there was a lot of shuffling and somewhat nonsensical moves at times, but black didn't have any breaks. And if you can't get the natural b5 or d5 breaks against the Maroczy Bind, you're just done. And you have to know when to take that risk. If you mistime it, you just lose. If you wait, more than likely, you just get squashed because white's going to take more space. So it's not fun when you're playing against players who have deeply studied the position. And I had a game against a French GM in Atlanta at the Castle Chess Grand Prix a number of years ago, and I misevaluated the position with black so badly. I thought I was just fine or had some initiative. I was like 2 points in the hole pretty much the entire game. So why am I talking about the Maroczy Bind when I've got this main line of the Sicilian con? Well, bishop c5 was played, which I do feel that this is objectively the best move in the main line seen in a number of Sicilian con courses published in the last 5 years. Knight b3 to hit the bishop, and the bishop c5 move is multi-purpose. The main thing is, I want the centralized knight to get further away from where my king is going to be so it can't attack me as easily later. Now, the main line by far has become bishop a7. And in my opinion, when analyzing for my students who play the Sicilian con, this is the only playable move at this point. The older generation guys are still playing bishop e7, but if you look at the games of, say, Grandmaster Smirin and Grandmaster Hansen, both of them played the con quite a lot in their careers. They have games where they just got squashed in under 20 moves when white played accurately from this position. And I'm not into the whole queen e2, f4, e5 castles camp because that would make me an aggressive player. I'm in the I'm just going to squeeze you to death camp. So I went with c4 and got the Maroczy structure. Now, I don't know the theory from this point. I know the Maroczy Bind as a setup. And the setup generally consists of a bishop on e3 and e2, a pawn on f3 to make a chain, a pawn on b3 to make a chain, a knight on c3, and this other knight normally on d4 or d2. Typically d4 with the queen on d2. So, that's where I'm headed. And I know the general plan for black is that I either need to make b5 or d5 work. If you wait, you have really bad problems. So my opponent is roughly 2,400, so he's a competent chess player. Should, and this is elite chess, should understand these themes and be looking for the moment. Now, when you're playing a higher rated player or you see the master title or whatnot, you can get intimidated. You can hesitate to do the move that you can't see past a certain point. It's much better to take the risk than to die by getting squished. So this goes back to, in the past few videos, I've talked about my students and mistakes that they're making, what I'm seeing in their games. You've got to look at all times for activity. And I've used this analogy before in the channel. Chess and boxing have a linear overlap. If you're only doing defense, you can never win. So this is the exact same concept. You must find a way to make the natural break work here, either b5 or d5. If you let white get too much of a setup, game's going to be over. So let's see how it went. Queen c7, natural development. It castles. Okay, so I've got my pieces developed. Black's heading towards the hedgehog. Now, rook c1 lining up with the queen. I might have the opportunity to play something like knight d5. A developmental move like knight c6 is going to be met with knight d5 as the rook is well placed. So that's the kind of idea that I'm looking for there. Black did play bishop b7, and this knight goes on d7 as it's far more flexible for reasons like we saw with that line. So queen e2, f3, and I don't mind so much knight e5 because this is my bad bishop. I'd be happy for you to get rid of that one. It will free up the cramp a little bit for black, so I don't know. I think we both got something out of the deal there. This is probably a better way to go than what black did in the main game. It changes the character of the position ever so slightly. And black should probably look to play knight d7 again and potentially bishop f6 to try to get some play. But he went castles. Rook fd1. And now I'm going to try to get my ideal setup. I feel like the pawn is a little bit weak. I want to get the chain, so move the knight out of the way. Play b3. And we're very, very close to the ideal setup. And black is going for one of the traditional plans to try to break. He's going bishop d8 to c7 to then play d5. And notice how the queen and bishop will line up together to hit the h-pawn. So knowing this plan, like, I'm just going to go h3. You're not going to be attacking anything. And after the opponent goes bishop c7, like, okay, bishop b1. I want this bishop out of the way so my rook can potentially exert more pressure as action begins to happen on the d-file. Opponent goes queen a8, another move indicating d5. So I'm like, okay, knight f1. Let's just add another guard to d5. And this is where things start to go wrong for black, because if you can't make d5 work and you're not looking at b5, that's not working. You got nothing to do in the position. And if you can't improve and you got nothing to do, you got bad choices to choose from and time trouble. And especially in a fast time control game, that's pretty much a lost position. Because you are going to get in time trouble, make a bad move, and it's going to lose the game. Now, am I in a hurry to change the character of the position when I see that my opponent is not going for his only source of counterplay? No. I see that, okay, if the rook is lined up with the queen with this x-ray, he could potentially make d5 work because there's a pin or something. Queen d3. Add another guard to d5 and get off that pin. Okay, we're just going to move the bishop to d4. Maybe you'll let me take on f6 and mess up your structure. No, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to come back to f2, out of the way, still keeping an eye on d5. Notice, does this attack work? No? Okay. No risk. We'll just put it back. Because you aren't making changes. So this is fishing. I'm looking for that opportunity to get a knockout blow. If it doesn't work, my opponent has shown no willingness to change the position. So I'm going to let him continue to get into time pressure. I'm going to slowly squeeze. Knight e3. More coordination. That knight wasn't doing anything. I'm no longer scared that my opponent's going to do the d5 break. I've got everybody looking at d5 and b5. And now this knight might have the opportunity to go to g4 at some point with good effect. So knight g6. a4. Just really rubbing it in that I have complete control here. No b5 break for you ever. And d5 is looking far more speculative than it was about 5 to 8 moves ago. Knight e5 hitting the queen. Don't want to go back to the e file for reasons why we left it earlier. So queen d2. Now knight h5. There's the time to pressure. And on knight f6, we come back to this plan from earlier. And now things have changed. Black has done nothing but shuffle. I've opened up the h-file, which gives me the plan of attack on the h-file. I also have the centralized bishop, so I'm going to go ahead and threaten mate. Now there will never be a break in the position. You have given me the d5 square, and I'm going to utilize it. Bishop e3. You attack my b-pawn. I defend my b-pawn. You attack my queen. I simply move her out of the way, and I'm already taking a watch on the critical square on h7. Should be 7. Let's get the king out of the way. Looking to just swing this one on over and try to get a little checkmate going. Knight e6. Mate threat. Best defender of the king side. You know, I said, why not go ahead and take a pawn because it's free, and too little, too late. d5. I played knight takes d5. E takes d5 is easily the best move because it unleashes the bishop, but I was just enjoying myself too much here, so I couldn't help it. Check. We'll take. I go g5. Now knight f6 is an idea. Say, for instance, if they waste a move, knight f6. And this is a coffin for the king. So bishop takes d5. I take with the e-pawn, unleashing the bishop. We have full coordination. Should probably sack the rook here because there's no getting out of it. And after bishop takes h7, my opponent resigned. So hopefully this will be a game and showing you how to play the simple Maroczy Bind. It's a game of patience. And if you expect to be in control all the time, play against a good player, or look at Kasparov playing the black side of these Maroczy positions. Kasparov is amazing at sensing when to blow up the game. And if you always have to be in control, you're going to lose to players that play with gusto, like Kasparov. This type of game is positional in nature, and black didn't know when to break. If you're playing these positions with black, learn how to break in the position. If you're playing them with white, learn how to deal with it when the position gets out of control. You'll have some fun in the game. Otherwise, you just squash them like you see here. Hopefully you enjoyed this game on the Maroczy Bind.